Are Prince William and Prince Harry set for an awkward reunion as rumors swirl that Harry and Meghan are looking to extend their royal exit deal?
I could see them giving them the extension just because it is the royal family and they move slower than almost any other institution on the planet. So I could absolutely see them saying, you know what, let's give this more time before we decide exactly what to do.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle pay tribute to their mothers as they release their first podcast.
After me. Ready? Happy?
Happy?
New?
New.
Plus, Gerry Edwards of Podcast Radio helps us break down Harry and Meghan's Archewell audio.
I think maybe all of us are a bit jealous because Harry and Meghan have got all the tools to do it without having to do it. If I'm honest, when I listened to episode 1, here I go, it sounded like they were just the voiceover of a documentary.
We've got that plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina, that's Molly, the host of the Diva Behavior Podcast. Molly, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Christina. And will this year top 2020 in royal drama? That is the question.
That is the question. There was certainly a lot of drama for it to live up to, so we shall see. But we already have a lot of things to talk about this week. We're going to get right to that in a minute, but we want to take a look back at our episode from a couple of weeks ago and read some of our comments from our royal watchers. So the first one goes to Daniel Wallace, says, the Cambridge children doing more public engagements is great. They'll live their lives in the public eye. It's probably good to make sure they're used to it. So yeah, like we said in a couple weeks ago, that the kids are going to be making some more public engagements this year. It won't be affecting their school schedule, but we will see them out and about a little bit more.
Yes, and I think William has grown up with this royal limelight on him, so he'll have a really great sense of how to talk to the kids about it and make sure that they don't feel so overwhelmed by it. So I think it'll be good.
They definitely have a good leader in that department. Next one goes to Marilyn Wolford. She says, it brought lots of joy seeing the Cambridge children out with their loving and careful parents, Catherine and William. And I just had the confusing joy of hearing bits of Archewell audio only, including a carefully prompted Happy New Year from Archie, followed by lots of giggles. This year has been lacking giggles from the littlest. I couldn't agree with you more. Hopefully we get more of that in the new year.
Yes, really hoping that.
Yes, we're going to talk a lot about Archewell audio coming up, so definitely stay tuned for that. And the last one goes to Linda, says, although I realize that Meghan and Harry technically have their titles, but really these two have no respect for the crown, why even talk about them? Well, we talk about them because they make good headlines and a lot of people are still interested in what they have to say.
Yes, and I also have to agree with Linda that I am a little confused by them still using their royal titles too, because they left. So I'm like, why bother continuing to use them?
Right. No, I totally agree with you. And I feel like they think that still draws a lot of people in, which it does. But I don't know. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about it later on, how they might want to extend their royal exit deal. Maybe that's probably one of the reasons why. Who knows? We'll break it all down a little bit, but let's get to our royal roundup, our royal news of the week, and let's kick it off with the first episode of Archewell audio released by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Now, we heard Archie speak for the very first time, and the couple revealed the special meaning behind their wedding song. Take a listen.
Thank you to all of our guests. And with that, we have something we wanted to share with you too.
Not a toast per se, but a song, which is about shining a light, and a song that means so much to us.
This little light of mine played at the very end of our wedding while we were walking down the steps of the church. It was the music that we wanted playing when we started our lives together. Because as we all know, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that.
We're going to break this episode down a lot more with Gerry coming up, but I mean, what were your initial thoughts?
So I thought it was very well done, but at the same time, the last thing I wanted to hear at the end of 2020 was a bunch of people talking about how awful 2020 was.
Right, yes.
I remember I was there, and I'm not a rich celebrity, so it was a little bit of like rough listening for me to hear that. I don't know. What did you think?
I think so too. It was like a little out of touch maybe. Like we know, yes, a lot of people suffered this year, and I can't imagine that celebrities that are living in a $16 million mansion are probably one of them. But I appreciate them trying to do this. Maybe they're still trying to find their footing. I did really like listening to Archie at the end. That was really, really cute. And, this podcast is all about hope, and hopefully they achieve their mission kind of going forward. But we'll see how it goes. Well, we give it a first listen. We'll give it another one and see what happens.
Right. It was their first episode. They're new at this. They have great podcast voices. I think we can all agree. And I think it's only up from here.
Only up from here. So we'll see how it goes, but it'll definitely give us a lot of stuff to talk about within the next few weeks.
For sure. Can't wait.
Yes. Well, the couple also shared a message of hope for the new year while honoring their mothers, Princess Diana and Doria Ragland. So what did they say in their letter, bringing in 2021?
So the letter very specifically referenced their mothers and Meghan as a mother. It was really interesting. It just really drew a line between Diana, Doria, and Meghan. I thought that was very fascinating to me. What did you think about that?
I thought so too. And I liked how that they, shared some photos of them growing up. They did this on their new website. So they're really kind of ramping up for the new year, and maybe that's a big focus going in, and maybe parenting. Maybe she's going to kind of take a stand on that and kind of open up a little bit more, which I would like. I would like to see her kind of getting more real about those parenting moments, because I don't feel like we hear about that as much from the royal family. So I would appreciate that, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And they talked a lot on their website and in this poem about the concept of activating compassion, which I thought was really interesting, because they have 3 prongs right now. They have the audio, they have the production company with Netflix, and they have the foundation. And it's just going to be interesting to see them balance this concept of working for these large tech companies for profit and also working with their foundation as all being under the same umbrella of activating compassion. So I don't really think this has been done before, and I'm excited to see how this sort of works itself out going forward.
They certainly have a lot on their plate, so it'll be interesting to see how they can kind of juggle them all and do them all really well.
Yes.
So we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of bringing in hope in 2021, Queen Elizabeth did just that in her New Year's message. She wrote a statement on Instagram. This was following her Christmas Day speech, and all about bringing hope into the new year.
So in her New Year's message, she said, "We will meet again. We will be with our friends and families again." And it really echoed for me her Christmas Day speech, which sort of played on the theme of not being alone, even though many people were alone. So it seems like she's sort of trying to embrace this message of community and make sure that people realize they're not alone.
Right, totally. And I love how she included some of her best photos of 2020, from her wedding anniversary when she knighted Tom Moore. So, kind of taking a look back at some of the happier moments that we had in 2020.
Right. They were few and far between. One of them was a picture of a turret at a castle with lights on it. So it's good to see that the Queen was struggling just as much as the rest of us to find happy 2020 memories for Instagram.
Totally. All right. Well, now it is time to spill the royal tea. And we have a lot of tea to get to this week, because a lot of rumors kind of flying around. But it's hard to believe, but on January 8th, that is 1 year since Harry and Meghan announced that they were stepping back from the royal family. I can't believe that's a year ago. But we are hearing, like we said before, that they want to extend their royal exit deal, which expires on March 31st. Are you surprised by this?
Yes, because they seemed like they were in such a rush to get it done to begin with, right?
Right. It seems like they were in such a rush that they were not looking back, and now they want to extend it. But, what are we hearing about why they want to extend it? Is there a certain reason why?
It seems like maybe it might have to do with Harry's military titles, that he might want to get himself back into the military fold. And I think that's pretty much it. That seems to be, and they also don't want to leave their patronages behind as well. So I think it seems like there should be a way for them to maintain those things without being part of the royal family, just while being philanthropists, don't you think?
I think so. I feel like the royal family may agree to this, but yet again, they really haven't kind of been to any of their other requests. So I don't know. We are hearing that Harry may travel back to the UK in the new year, in the early new year, but obviously everything going on with the coronavirus. I know that there's some strict restrictions in London right now. So who knows when he will be traveling back. but he does want to have some Zoom calls with senior members of the royal family to kind of get this in motion, because March 31st will be here before we know it.
It really will. And do you know what? I could see them giving them the extension just because it is the royal family and they move slower than almost any other institution on the planet. So I could absolutely see them saying, you know what, let's give this more time before we decide exactly what to do.
Yeah, totally. We'll have to wait and see. Well, when Harry does return to London, we are hearing that the first meetup with his brother, Prince William, may be a little tense. Author Phil Dampier told The Sun that the first meetup between the brothers may prove a bit awkward. Now, I feel like we hear different stories all the time, like they are on good terms, they're not on good terms. But yes, I would imagine after probably not seeing your brother for a year in person, that things are going to be a little awkward.
Yeah, and the only thing I keep thinking about is on that Remembrance Day ceremony, Harry and Meghan's last day as active royals, the way that William and Kate sort of snubbed them on camera. I mean, you can't get much more awkward than that. So I just think that the royal capacity for awkwardness is vast, and I would believe the idea that this could be a weird reunion. Yes.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, but we do have a couple big events coming up. If, like we said, if the coronavirus allows, with, the Princess Diana statue. And I feel like they will put on, since that moment when they had that awkward reunion, I feel like they would put on a united front now going forward, because so many people were talking about that.
Yeah. If not on their own, then because their advisors tell them to.
Yes. You put on a happy face and you nod and you smile and it'll be great. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll see. Well, we are sure that Meghan and Harry will definitely put on a united front when they step out, if they go back to London. So we hear that this past year has actually brought them closer together, moving to California, unfortunately going through, that heartbreaking miscarriage. Sources do tell us that they're really, really close, and they're actually really liking their life in California.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? Their house looks gorgeous. They have a beautiful son.
Yep.
The weather is better than it is in London. I mean, Whole Foods.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we hear, sources tell us that, Harry doesn't really have any regrets about anything, and that he really feels that he has the freedom to make his own decisions, which we are seeing with the podcast, with Netflix, with, all the different charities that they have going on. So he's really kind of free to do what he wants to do without the royal eye kind of watching over him.
Right. And sources have told us also that he does miss his friends, right?
I'm sure.
So that, which is totally understandable, especially because I'm sure if things were normal, they would have been to visit dozens of times.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true.
I mean, who doesn't want to go visit California to hang out with Meghan and Harry?
Seriously, sign me up. Well, we are hearing that Harry is happy. Writer Angela Levin may think otherwise. She is a royal expert and an author, and she wrote an op-ed for the Sunday Telegraph saying that Harry is a shadow of his former self and has accepted being second to Meghan. Now, this was definitely a harsh piece, and a lot of people may agree, may disagree. Where do you kind of stand in this?
I think there was a lot of conjecture in this piece, don't you think?
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy to blame Meghan for being an outspoken woman who doesn't play by the rules, and just take that and extrapolate it out to her being some sort of I don't even know, alpha female who doesn't let her husband have an opinion. And I don't think we've seen anything to make us think that that's the case, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Harry said in his speech when he announced that they were leaving, this is my decision too. I wanted to leave. This is not just because of Meghan. We made this decision together as a family, and it's not fair to put all the blame on her all the time. He is a grown man.
Yeah.
He has never liked the media. He has never really liked the public eye, and this was maybe his way out, and that's okay. And maybe he is a shadow of his former self to what other people may perceive, but maybe this is his happiest that he's ever been.
Right. I also would say, though, it is interesting. She brings up a lot of the past quotes that he had where he said, I do not ever want to go down a celebrity route. I'm not a celebrity. I'm a royal. Yeah. And I think he has gone more down a celebrity route than anyone I can remember in recent memory, So I think that is an interesting shift. You can't deny that shift, because what he's doing now is 100% like celeb central.
100%. I mean, you know, just listening to the first podcast, he had a bunch of celebrities on it, and you know, he's living in a celebrity-filled neighborhood, and those are kind of the people that he's rubbing shoulders with. And he married a celebrity, so I mean, you don't really get more into that world than that. Yeah. So I mean, he's become one of the biggest A-list stars in the world. So.
Right. And he has not stepped back from the public eye whatsoever. He has stepped further into it, I would say. I think there were times when we would go months without hearing from Harry before his marriage. But I still don't think that I don't think that gives any indication that Meghan is the cause for that change or that she has changed him in any way.
No. I mean, she may have influenced him into doing some things, but I don't think that like ultimately she's like, you have to do this, otherwise I'm leaving. I don't think that she gave him any ultimatums. I mean, obviously we have no idea what goes on behind closed doors, and we're just kind of making up theories of our own, but I don't see her going in there and being like, you have to change your entire life for me. But
yeah. And like Harry does seem like very well adjusted for a prince, but I also don't think you're going to get very far giving ultimatums to someone who grew up as a prince with servants.
Right. Yeah, seriously. Totally. It's very, very true. All right. Well, now it is time to break down the royal rules. And to help us do that this week is Podcast Radio's pod jock, Gerry Edwards. And he's going to talk to us all about Harry and Meghan's ventures into podcasts with Archewell Audio. Take a look. Like we said, we're talking all about Harry and Meghan's venture into the podcast world. So what was your initial reaction when you heard this news?
If I'm honest, when I listened to episode 1, here I go, it sounded like they were just the voiceover of a documentary.
Right.
You know, didn't it? Which is weird. Which makes, because you think, well, actually, I thought we were going to listen to them. They didn't talk to anyone. They got everyone to send in recorded messages, which, by the way, in Audioland is the cheapest way to do it. And they're like, that's the nastiest way to do it. And then at one stage, they actually cut the audio and they drop in and say, hang on a minute. And they try and clarify things. But at the end of it, it was all right. It was all right, that episode. I think it wasn't too cringeworthy.
Gerry, are there any podcasts that you could compare this to that are already out?
No, and that's what I thought was quite clever about it. I don't think that's a good thing. I think someone has, how do I say it? I've been in jobs in my life where your boss isn't as good as what you do at doing what you do and stops you doing it. You've got some good ideas around a table, and I can just visualize whoever's in control. By the way, if you're just listening to this, I just did those rabbit ear things, quotation marks. Whoever is in control of this podcast must have the hardest job at flying ideas, saying, oh, we should do this, we should do that. Because at the end of the day, you're talking to a prince and princess, or ex-prince and ex-princess, however you want to look at it. You're talking around a table, and they're just going to say no, no, no. And they're not specialists at this. However, of course, podcasting has no rules, so you can do what you like, and they have done what they like. If I can say it, and I'll be nicer after this point, it is the podcast version of Gal Gadot's Imagine, when she went through all those celebrities. Think about it. And then they sang. Now, that was terrible, right? We know it's terrible. This one's got a bit more substance because they're not just A-list celebrities. When they put that 3-minute advert out, the teaser, it sounded like it could be exciting. Yeah. And they said, oh, we're going to spread positive messages. It's going to be this, that. And then the first voice you hear that's not them is Elton John. And you think, well, is that really the positive? And they've opened the celebrity book there. But it's very well put together. There's nice music trails. It ends with the big shine a light on me. And so it leaves you that, like, that it does what every good podcast should do, in that the last moment makes you go, put on the next episode, which I think is quite clever.
I mean, do you think that people are going to, if this is the format going forward, if this is how this show is going to be, do you think people are going to kind of start seeing through that a little bit? And maybe it's like, oh, they just did this to put their name on it, and then they're moving on to the next thing. Maybe this is going to be what the recipe is like for their Netflix series too, that they just put their name on something and then they're just kind of moving on and collecting.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a recipe. They might have. I hope they prove me wrong with the next few episodes, because you can't have a series of what that was. And if that was your pilot or your number one episode, then why was that different to the rest? I think they're probably working on strategy as they go with this. They will be sitting around. They don't have episodes 1 to 10 down. So they've got to either react to events as they happen. it felt like an actor acting a part. Now, they both in ways are. She is an astute actor, and he's had to act a role that you do have to, of course, show at events and stand a certain way and say speeches a certain way. And I think at the start I was like, this is just two people speaking, like giving two speeches together at a podium. But it's going to make money. It's going to get loads of ears on it. If they put adverts in it later on down the line, like everything goes commercial eventually, it's going to work. I wish we had them under our umbrella of podcast radio, but we don't. But again, as Molly said earlier, we kind of go the rock and roll route. We're trying to talk and bring action to other podcasters who aren't so well known, as well as the big hitters. But it's got its home in podcasting because it's an unlimited pool as a medium. You know, no one can argue they shouldn't have done it. I think that's where the jealousy lives. If you are saying, oh, they shouldn't have done that, you're just jealous. I'm jealous.
Yeah. I mean, so to wrap it up, Gerry, I mean, what do you think we'll see from the future of Archewell Audio? Like, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but just to kind of wrap it up a little bit.
I think they were clever in that they didn't just use celebrities. And strangely enough, this is weird. I went for a jog while I was listening to it. Because it helps. I hate exercise, so it helps just like pass the time. And at one stage, one of the guests, I can't even think who it is, has an English accent and says, oh, well, I'm Gen Z. Now in the UK, we say Gen Z. And for about 100 meters, as I was jogging slowly, I was going, what did she say? I'm a Gen Z. What's a Gen Z? And then I realized they've got to try and really be global. They've got to make acts. Will they go more American? Will they go more British? Will they be neutral? It's actually harder than it sounds to do all that. But I think they picked different accents from all around the world. They got different cultures and backgrounds in it. And it wasn't all celebrity. And I think they've hinted there that I think they'll have a deeper dive, maybe talking to scientists, maybe talking to Nobel Peace Prize winners and things like that. But I think they'll go deeper and actually, surely, fingers crossed, have them live, like we're chatting now back and forth, not just asking them questions to be recorded in advance. I think that's where it's gonna end up being an interview podcast that just goes back and forth, but with three of them and maybe some more from Archie, it should be a bit more fun.
I agree. I hope so. We're going to keep our fingers crossed about that. Well, Gerry, thank you so much for all your insight. We really appreciate it. This was great.
Cool. Thanks. No, thanks for having me. It's great to roast a pod with you.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how this podcast kind of plays out going forward.
Yes. And one thing we didn't mention is how so many members of the British press have said Harry has a little bit of an American accent now. And I'm going to be keeping an ear out for that too. The way he said 2020 instead of 2020.
Right. Yes.
My spidey senses are tingling now.
Watch out, Hilaria Baldwin. Watch out. All right. Well, let's move on to our royal history moment of the week. And the holidays certainly look different for all of us, but we actually finally know how the royals spent their holidays this year, and they all spend it at different households.
Yes, so the Queen and Prince Phillip went to Windsor Castle, which we knew they were going to be doing. And then Charles and Camilla apparently stayed at Highgrove, which I will now forever associate with Charles leaving Diana right before their wedding to go and check out his garden because of the crown. Thank you, Peter Morgan.
Right.
And I guess the Cambridges, it's thought that they spent Christmas at their home in Norfolk, right?
Yes, thought that they, spent it, kind of hunkered down at home. I'm sure doing all of their Christmas traditions just as a small family, but it's what a lot of people did this year. And, it's good that they stayed safe and stayed healthy.
Right. And Meghan and Harry, of course, were in California, which I would love to hear his thoughts about having a warm California Christmas for the first time in his life. That must have been so strange.
Seriously, hanging Christmas lights on palm trees this year. So I'm sure it was a lot different.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they all well celebrated. All right, so before we wrap up, we want to check in our royal kids in our pint-sized palace, and we thought it would be fun to take a look back at some of their cutest royal moments of 2020. Take a look. Despite the coronavirus pandemic, the royal kids have been pretty busy in 2020. Here's a look back at some of their cutest moments. In April, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis clapped for healthcare workers alongside their parents, Duchess Kate and Prince William.
Children have got such stamina. I don't know how, honestly, you get to the end of the day and you write down all the list of things that you've done in that day. You pitch a tent, take the tent down again, cook, bake. You get to the end of the day they've had a lovely time, but it is amazing how much you can cram into one day, that's for sure.
And like most parents, Kate and William felt the stress of homeschooling, but made the most of it. A source told us in April that Kate's now got them into a routine, and she is mainly in charge of homeschooling and playtimes, but William is also very involved too. In April of 2020, Kate proved that she was just like us, giving us an Instagram versus reality moment when it came to Louis's colorful second birthday. Well, things weren't as messy for Charlotte, who turned 5 in May, and George, who turned 7 in July.
Hello, David Attenborough. What animal do you think will become extinct next?
Hello, David Attenborough. I like feathers. Do you like feathers too? What animal do you like?
Now in October, we heard the little one speak on camera for the very first time, asking Sir David Attenborough some nature questions. In December, Louis stole the show and everyone's hearts as he posed with a huge grin for their annual Christmas card. Now that same month, the royal kids made their red carpet debut while attending a special pantomime performance of the National Lottery's Pantaland at the Palladium, and expect to see more of them in the new year, with a source telling us that the royal kids will be making more public appearances in 2021. So looking back at 2020, do you have a favorite royal moment?
So I have a couple.
Okay.
I loved William and Kate's tour of Ireland because I just loved the fashion. I loved Meghan and Harry's farewell tour of the UK, again, because I loved the fashion, and it was basically the last like high wattage fashion that we got from Meghan of the year, or maybe ever.
Right.
And then I have to say my favorite royal moment, just because it created so much fallout and so much for everyone to talk about, was Harry and Meghan announcing out of nowhere that they were going to leave the royal family. It was
great.
It was just wild.
It was wild. It was like something like literally just out of a movie. Like you never would have expected such a big royal scandal in 20. It feels like a lifetime ago too. It doesn't feel like it even happened in 2020. But yeah, that certainly caused a stir. I mean, it's one for the history books. We're going to be talking about this for years and years to come. And,
Right.
you know, they really kind of shook the royal family to its core. And, you know, the whole family kind of went into crisis mode. Like, how do we handle this? And they're still handling it, like we were talking about. Another fun moment for me was with the kids when they were, when we heard them speak for the first time with Sir David Attenborough. I thought that was really cute. Like you said, Meghan and Harry's farewell tour, where they have that beautiful photo in the rain underneath the umbrella. I think that was a really beautiful moment as well. But there's so many, and hopefully we create a lot more in 2021.
Yes, absolutely. And now that we've heard all 4 of the kids speak this year, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
We've never heard a single one of them speak, and now they've all, you know, given us their little addresses.
So cute. I mean, we definitely need more of that. Like one of our viewers said at the beginning of the show, we need more giggles in 2021. So
Absolutely.
bring it on. Well, Molly, thank you so much for breaking down all things royals, as always.
Thank you, Christina.
All right. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. We appreciate you watching all year long, and hopefully we continue in the new year. So keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we will see you next week. Bye.